Hello everyone, down here with another progress report on the Corsair upgrades, modifications, and so forth. Alright, my last video I was showing you the muffler design, and I went ahead and drilled out a bunch of holes like I mentioned. Now there was one of my subscribers that follows a lot. He goes by the handle of Warbles on a lot. He likes to leave comments on most of my videos and has a lot of insight. So when I mentioned these holes, he said maybe by drilling the first in the center small and then make them larger as you go out. So that's what I did. I started off with an 1/8 inch bit and did around through here like one full turn, and then I stepped up to a 1/64 of an inch bigger and up around, and the last one up a little bigger. So there's not a big drastic change, but it's a little change. Figure and any gas goes in there, it'd be easier to come out down here. So as it expands, it'll kind of help push it outward from there. So I thought it was a good idea, so I went ahead and utilized it. Alright, so the way this is going to work now is this is going to be the basic pipe coming off of the manifold, the exhaust manifold, and it's going to come in like this. Now if anybody's familiar with what this is, if you don't know what this little red block is, a friend of mine printed me up 3 of these on his new printer he bought, and he did an 1.5 inch, 1 3/4, and 2 inch. This one's a 2 inch. And what it is these are holes through there, and what you do is you fill that up full of rods. This is a 3/32 hole, so the cheapest thing to use would be some 3/32 steel TIG rod. You could use tungsten, like my welder uses, but tungsten's not cheap. A pack of 10, I don't know what they cost, $10, $15 for a pack of 10 for the cheap ones, and you need 40 of them just to do this. And then once you put them all in there, you wrap a rubber band around the center. And then the idea is you set this tube where you want it to go in. It's going to come in just like this at a 90-degree angle. So it's got to be cut. This has to be cut to follow this pattern here. So what you do is you push all these little rods out until it touches. And then you slide the tube, slide this down around the tube. It's a little tight right now. I actually had to put it in a lathe and bore it out some. This cold got her quite tight. But anyway, the rods will come out and it'll leave the points of the thing. You just follow around with a marker. Now it gives you the cutoff for this, and as you got it on here, you follow around there, and then you can cut this out, and then you merge the two together and weld it. So this one's going to come in at a slightly upwards angle, like this, because that's what's coming down from the manifold. And then the outlet is going to come out like this, one here and one here. Same way, so it's going to have a little bit of a splay like that. That's exaggerated, but just going to be a faint sway. So, and then I took and cut this all down to size. So once this goes in, that little point right here, and it goes into this tube. I drilled a hole right here, and this is kind of where the point ends up. This point ends up right here. And then with that set up, I've got a stainless steel screw. Just going to set that in there and weld it. Now with that in there, I can still get this out. You just got to spiral it in and out. So the tubes are actually going to be coming in. This will be on the bottom side. So the tube's going to go out this way. I got that in. It's going to splay out a little bit like so. And then the inlet's going to come in here like so. So that's what I got done with that. And it took a while, to trim all that down and make it all fit in there and figure out how to do this. And then also, that pin will hold it from twisting this way, because the exhaust is going to come around here and hit it and split. So it's going to tend to want to push it that way. But it could still twist back, like this. So on the end caps, I'm going to drill another hole through the end caps into this, put another screw and weld it. And I'll do that on both ends. So I still have to make the second cap out of this. So I'd mentioned that I ordered one of those little permanent magnet generators, and here it is. It came in Friday, I believe, Saturday. I didn't work in the plane Saturday. I ended up going to a lunch with some flying buddies down in Grove City, about an 1.5 hour drive. But see, I took it apart. The only reason I took it apart was I was going to change this pulley, which is a V pulley, which I can't use. So I took it off, and as you can see, it's got a keyway. it has a keyway. Here's the Woodruff key, and then the parts. You got a little sleeve that goes on, this kind of notch to clear the Woodruff key. So I pulled the pulley off of my alternator, and it turns out it's the same size, but this one doesn't have a key. So when I pulled it off, I didn't take it apart at the time. I put this on there, and I'm looking at it. This has to physically tighten down when you put the nut on there and lock it down. This one had a key and a little thing shoulder here. But I took it apart to find out if there was a shoulder behind this bearing. You can see these little screws holds the bearing in. The bearing just came off with the shaft. But the shaft looks like it is about the same size here as it is there. There may be, I haven't mic'd it to check, but the idea is if I'm trying to torque this down, it's probably going to try and squeeze that, or actually what it will do is it'll pull this magnet out. Now, okay, after tearing it apart and seeing what it looks like inside, again, here's this just your permanent magnets. You can see they're epoxied in there. So I see 4 potential problems with this being used in an aircraft or anything. This casting, it's nice casting, but it's very, very lightweight. If you look at this original one, it's all solid. These ears are solid, everything's solid. This thing is reduced where it's extremely light, really thin. It can't be more than 50 thousandths thick at its thickest in this material. So it's very, very lightweight, which is a good thing, but it just means that these things could snap off way easier than these would ever snap off. So that's number 1. Number 2, well, there's actually probably 5. This is the voltage regulator here, and it does work. I put this into my little mini lathe and I spun it up, and all I did was hooked up a voltmeter to it, and it instantly puts out voltage. So inside there's a diode. You can see one little diode tucked in here, another little diode there, so it's only like half bridge rectified. It's got three windings, I believe, in there, 3 separate windings, and they all come out to here, one end to each side, ground net. But the one problem is it takes about 2,000 RPM to get it spinning fast enough to put out 13 volts, which is not a problem, because with the pulley on it here and the big pulley on the crown, it's going to get to that 2,000. But here's the big problem, one of the big problems. Right here it says 4,500. If I can read that. But it's got a 4,500 there. It's 12 to 14 volts, 1,200 watts, 4,500, and then the date on it, 10 of 2024. The 4,500 I take as being the maximum RPM. Now that's going to be a problem. This engine, if you was to drive this at a 1-to-1, 5,600 RPM is what that's going to run at. So if you underdrive it to get it under this 4,500, now it's going to be spinning real low. When that thing idles down to 500 RPM, this thing's going to be spinning 200 RPM, and it's not going to produce any voltage until you get up to 2,000. So it wouldn't produce the full voltage for quite a while. Okay, that's another problem. And the third problem is this. You see what the problem is? Any idea what the problem might be with this? The problem with this, the reason it's limited to 4,500 RPM is that those magnets are just glued on. You spin this thing over 4,500 RPM, at some point those magnets are going to let go. They're not going to stay put. So you're limited on speed because they're glued together. If they were inside a case, that wouldn't be a problem. But the way this is, these things can fly off. They could break loose and fly off. And then between here and the stator, you're talking, it's a very, very close tolerance. And if one of those comes loose and gets in there, it'll probably just rip every single one of them off and probably seize the whole unit up, twist something up. It'll just destroy itself in no time. So that's why, it's not why I tore it apart, but that's what I found after taking it apart. So it's not a very viable option for an alternator. So I did some searching for who makes the smallest alternators, and it turns out Denso makes the smallest ones. And I did find another one in about the $70 range, and it's 35 amp. It's an aftermarket for it's called a mini Chevy alternator, and it's only 6.5 inches across from here to here. So it's probably even smaller than this. This is 6 inches, so it's real close to that dimension. This is a little over 6.5. So nice little unit, works great, but it may work a little better on an engine that's running, you know, like an aircraft running 24 to 2800 RPM. Wouldn't be a problem. You could run it at a 2-to-1 speed, and it would hold up just fine. Only at full throttle it would exceed 4500, but that's the reason right there. I was wondering why it had such a low RPM rating, and those magnets won't stay on there. So throw that aside. But the nice thing was it does fit perfect. That pulley fit perfect. I just took it apart to try and see if I could put a spacer between this bearing and here if this thing, but I'm not even going to bother with it. I'm just going to put it back together. I should return it and get my money back, because that was like 60 bucks. So I can't use it, and I don't know what I'd ever use it on. Alright, so put all this aside, and I did get this is my ignition module I ordered that I thought was going to be the right one, but turns out it's not. This is a 4-channel, has 4 out pins on it, 4 in, 4 out. But this is no different than my original igniter off of that, which I have here as well. I thought I threw one in here. This one's 2-channel. This is a 4-channel. They do exactly the same thing, and neither one of these will control dwell, so I have a problem with those. Alright, and I mentioned I ordered my throttle body, and this is what I got. And then there was a bag of pieces of parts that came with it. They just sent everything. Had a real chintzy homemade adapter to go for the air filter housing, a couple extra brackets. I had a little bell crank here that was mounted onto here to use a cable operation to push this primer button for priming. So essentially what happens is your fuel line hooks to here, and then this goes to here, and inside of here is a cone screen filter, and that's a plug. So the idea is now is to take this out, put another fitting in it with a restrictor, just like I made for the oil, a 16th inch restrictor as a return line to the tank. And it came with this little bracket. That's where your outer housing of your cable would connect, and then your push-pull cable hooks to the throttle here. It pulls in and out. You can see it works the throttle in there. Sorry, trying to see with this camera. This way. So it's a guillotine slide. It's smooth, very smooth, very smooth. And then this is the mixture control, which cuts the fuel. And I think it's hard to see on this, but when you do fuel cut, you can see down in there, you should be able to see those tiny little holes in that center tube. Just not got good lighting, but anyway, this turns sideways and has them tiny little tubes in there. I don't even think I can. I'm not even sure if you guys can see it. I can't really see it on this thing, but oh, 1 second, folks. Bear with me here. I don't know if you can see them, but there's a row of fine holes in there, 10 thousandths holes. It starts out as one row, and they get closer and closer together, and then it goes into 2, 3, 4 rows. But that's your mixture. So when the air flows in from this way, so when this thing is turned, this turns 90 degrees, those holes are pointing straight this way. So as the air goes around that tube, it sucks the fuel right out of them. And when you want to lean it out, you rotate this thing up, and as them holes come up towards the top, it does a fuel cutoff. The fuel can no longer be drawn out of there. Now, I don't know if it actually will shut the engine off. At a higher throttle, if you do that, it probably will kill it. At idle, it still works off the idle circuit. It won't die. So, but that's how that works. So, I got to get this fitting out of here and take these fittings out because they're probably not the size I'm going to be running. So that came out. So that's ready. Then this is a little template I made for an oil tank. Actually, I'm probably going to be cutting it off at this top line. I need 5 quarts, and this is going to be 4 inches thick. So that's going to tuck up right in here. like so. And then I'll come off the front with an elbow and weld on the filler cap, and then there'll be a sight gauge. Either the filler cap will be on this side or this side, and whichever one, I'll have the sight gauge on one side and the filler tube on the other side. So you'll be able to check it and fill it right here without ever opening the cowl. You'll be able to walk by and look at the sight gauge in there and see how much fuel oil's in it. Then up here you can see I took these fittings off, and I was trying to see, I could actually tap this out to a 1-inch pipe thread. Is the perfect size that I could thread these out to screw in a short nipple, and then buy some 1-inch hose that has a 90-degree bend and come right off and put her back in. So that's where I'm at with all that. Now the next thing, because of this ignition problem, oh, I got one more. I did go ahead and assemble the wing lights. Let me see if I can get this to work. Find out positive, negative. Now this all works. If I can get this on here real quick, 1 second. And that's the test. The red light on the left would be your left wing, green is the right wing, and the yellow is your tail light, and that's the flash pattern. Basically that's emulating the strobe flash. So of course the recognition lights, the red and green, will stay on. And then there's that little red dip switches there. Then we change one switch and it changes the pattern to that style of blink with that switch. Need 3 hands for this, folks. I can't get to it, but I can't get to them. But anyway, I can probably get to the bottom one. That's a single flash, double flash on the tail. So, but everything hooks into this through this connector. So all the wires from the left, right, and tail all hook into that. So that's that. Alright, now back to my original problem with being able to control dwell on the ignition system. Well, I looked and looked and looked, and I finally found a company that sells this ignition controller. It's called Megajolt, M-E-G-A-J-O-L-T, Megajolt. It's made over somewhere in Europe, and there's a few vendors here in the United States that sell it. It's a little box, little electronic box. All it does is control timing, but you can hook your computer into it and you can map out your whole timing table that you want. And you can have the timing table referenced off of a throttle position sensor, which I'm not going to use, or a map sensor, which is manifold vacuum, and the intake, which is the more precise for what I'm doing. So that's what so I was looking at that. And then that unit uses a Ford EDIS module out of a mid-90s, like a 95 Crown Victoria with a 4.6 mod motor. They call it an EDIS, Electronic Distributorless Ignition System. You can get it in a EDIS 4, 6, or 8, for 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder, or 8-cylinder. But it fires dual coils like this engine uses, wasted spark. But if I was to get an EDIS 8 for it, I could run coil on plug because it has 4 channels out. So the EDS 4 has 2 channels, 6 has 3 channels, so you can run 2 coils or 2 double coils, 3 coils or 3 double coils, or 4 coils or 4 doubles. But if you use 4 coil on plug, you can get away with that. Well, then you got to get the 36 tooth ring that goes on the crankshaft, and then you got to get the sensor. So between the box was $200. The used modules on eBay start at $100 and go up from there. You can probably still find them in the scrap yard, but you're not going to do it these days because it's 5 degrees out there today, and the wind chill is 18 below, or the real feel is 18 below right now. So it's cold as hell out. I got the heat turned off and it's too cold out here to work, so I am not doing anything out here yesterday or today. But anyway, so that's $100. So there's $300, and then the ring and the pickup sensor and some other stuff you're going to need. You're going to have probably between $400 and $500 into that. So I kept watching videos on Dwell and everything, and I came across Speeduinos. Speeduinos is a aftermarket Arduino-based computer standalone system for fuel injection. But the nice thing is, even with this computer, you can do the same thing with this stock one. But what happens is the Speeduino does everything. Fuel injection, you can do boost, you can do nitrous oxide. They got several different versions, version 3, version 4, and some others. But turns out their kit's just like that light kit, and it's only $115 for the version 4 kit. And then buying the optional map sensor for it is another 20 bucks, and then a box is 20 bucks. So for $160 with shipping, I can have a whole complete fuel injection computer that you just solder all together. But the nice thing is it's all mappable. You can do fuel mapping, you can do ignition mapping, but I'm not going to use it for fuel injection. I'm just strictly going to use it for mapping the ignition timing. So now I can actually have the 10 degrees for cranking mode, so when it starts, and then it'll automatically advance, and then I can plot out the whole map curve with a laptop, and you can even hook a wideband into it to check for air-fuel ratios for help tuning and setting up this thing. And wideband sensors are more tolerable to lead as long as you let the sensor heat up and start working before you start the car. That's the only drawback. So it takes maybe a minute for your O2 for that wideband to work, and that computer is capable of reading a wideband or a narrowband. Narrowband works 0 to 1 volt. Wideband works 0 to 5 volts. A narrowband only practically works around 0.45 volts, which is 14.7 to 1 air fuel, but a wideband will range from 10 to 20 to 1 from 0 to 5 volts output. So that's what I did. I ordered that last night when I get that in, but that's going to allow me, and I still need this, so luckily I can still use this. But the Speeduino will trigger this. It still needs this to carry the high current to the coils, but I can use this to do 4 coils, coil on plug. I want to get away from this wasted coil spark, because if you lose 1 coil, you lose 2 cylinders. Now you're down over 50% of your power, because you don't lose half power, you lose more than half, because now the other 2 cylinders have to carry the 2 dead cylinders. So by using coil on plug, if 1 coil fails or plug fouls, you're down to 3 cylinders, and you got a better chance of getting back to a field or something. So, but I'm going to use that, and so I use that, and then all I got to do is get some coil on plugs, and this thing's ready to go. Oh, and I also had to buy a variable reluctance driver for the signals, and then that's another key nice thing about this system is they already have the programming to use the stock cam and crank sensors. The crankshaft has 6 teeth on it, and they're spaced weirdly, and then the cam has 7 teeth. You got these 3, 1 here, 2 here, and then 1 on the other side for a total of 7 teeth. Well, the software already recognizes this pattern, and with that sensor, I can put that sensor right back in there, put that sensor in there, run it in the Speeduino, and that's all I need to control the timing. And then I can just plot out the timing map that I want. So the original computer sets right here. I'll take it out, put another one. I bought the box. It's even smaller than this computer. So it'll drop right in there, and I can wire it in. And I'll still only have, half a dozen wires coming out of that thing, but I'll have full control over the timing. I don't intend on using fuel injection. I'm using that carburetor. So that takes care of that. So that's the cheapest route. So with that, I'm going to have less than $200 into that system, and it's great. And then I'll buy another one of these. I'll buy this is a cheap one. It was 12 bucks. I'll buy the Bosch one, which are $60, $70 for a good Bosch one. Some of them are even way more expensive than that, but I did find the actual one that will do dwell that would work for me, but I have no way of changing the timing. All I can do is adjust the dwell, automatically current limiting on the dwell. But this doesn't current limit, it's just a trigger. The computer fires this, and that fires the coil. So that's where I'm at. So that's going to be a nice sweet system, because I can hook it up. It does data logging too. I can actually hook in the water coolant temp to it, the computer controlled one. I can hook in the air water temp, and you can do, I think, oil pressure. It can monitor a lot of stuff, but only if you have it set up with a computer. You can watch it. And on this, I would just hook the computer up so I could do the map curve. The nice thing about the ignition timing curve on this is it's always under load. It's always under the exact same load because the propeller is holding the engine back as it goes through the RPM range. So it'll be very easy to plot out an ignition timing curve for this. But you can use that, sit there with that laptop and this thing's running at each setting of, every 500 RPM, and then play with timing until you see a change in RPM or something to where you can notice a definitive, a knock or something like that, and you can bring it right up onto the ragged edge. That's what all electronic computers do, is they bring the engine right up to the edge of knock, which will give you your peak torque. So it'll be easy to map this thing out because it's going to be a pretty linear scale. And it's a 12 by 12 grid, so it's 12 high on the map versus 12 different RPM points, and it'll interpolate between each one. So from 1,000 to 2,000 RPM, if that was your spacing, it will automatically interpret. If you're at 20 degrees at 1,000, 24 degrees at 2,000, it'll interpolate, right between there, and keep adjusting timing. It won't just go from 20 to 24 or whatever you got it set for. So I can use some of this harness. I'll be able to reuse these sensors, so I don't have to. Oh, and that was another cost, is buying a trigger wheel plus the crank position sensor for the Ford. So you're going to be in over $400 for buying that other box. And then they're like hen's teeth. They're extremely hard to find. I did find a place in Washington State, a dune buggy or a Volkswagen Beetle shop that sells them for the fuel injection, just for converting over the ignition when they're doing a fuel injection system. So that's where I'm at. I'm not going to do any work today. It's cold. It's getting colder by the minute out here. Save my breath. So that's what I'm up to. I got to go get me some TIG rod for that so I can get these holes cut out, get the tube shaped. I'll use this tube. It's longer than I need, so the whole thing will get welded onto what's already in there. I'll probably cut that little stub off to weld this on because it's going to be pretty close. I mean, that thing's going to be, manifold's going to come right here into this thing. So, but that's a neat little gizmo, and it's pretty dirty. So whatever it was on, they didn't have it set right because it's running real rich. You can see all the carbon in that valve throttle. But that thing is super smooth, and this one was made in '09. This is the Mark 1. The only thing I don't like about it is this type of mount. That's got to mount to the intake. So I was thinking I might be able to make kind of a round box instead of the intake manifold looking like this and then having the tubes come into the side of it. I was thinking of making it more like this, and then have the tubes come in this way and make a plenum there, and then an air filter. You could put a round filter on it, and then my throttle linkage could now pull this thing in and out. That's what I keep wanting to come out and check. I don't remember how long my throttle cable is. It might be a 4-footer, but this one is a little different mount. It's got this type of mount instead of a pair of nuts to mount onto it. So I may have to get in, but that's still going to be kind of long there. I mean, it's kind of awkward. So I got to look into that. Those cables they're about $100. So, all right. Well, I noticed when I was recording on my videos, at times when I'm moving real quick like this, the camera kind of stutters. And then when you take the battery out of this thing, I have 2 batteries, and you put in a new battery, you lose the memory settings. So, well, speak of the devil, the battery went dead, just as I was talking. So, but when the battery goes dead, or change out the batteries, you lose the memory in this thing, and it was set at 30 frames per second, so I kicked it up to 60 frames per second. So, all right, this video is probably already getting long in the tooth, so I'm going to go ahead and end it. I know the last one I said I was going to keep her short, and then short was like 36 minutes. So, but I just wanted to kind of pass along, what I found and what my thought process is with this project. So, the canopy still lost in the mail. Hasn't showed any movement since the 7th. I just checked again this morning, so that's on hold. As soon as I can get this exhaust finished, I got to do finish up the welding on it. Now that I've showed you what it looks like, I'm just going to finish it up. So the next time you see my video, that should be done. I got to get a tank of argon. I know it's going to run out on me. And get that done, and then I may start on the intake or the oil tank. So the oil tank, I'm going to make it out of 16th inch thick material, and when it's done, if it's this tall, it'll hold 6 quarts. Of 6 quarts, I need 5 quarts plus a quart of air. So a gallon is 231 cubic inches, and this would end up being 350 cubic inches or something like that. So that'll give me enough to hold 5 quarts plus a volume of air of at least a quart. So, all right, everyone, I'm going to cut her off there, get back in the house because it is cold out here, and it's not going to get any better. It is fairly nice out, just colder and shit. There's Mr. Loki. Light snow so far, but it's cold. It is bitter. All right, that's going to do it for this week, friend. For now, it is supposed to warm up towards the 30s again for the weekend, so I'll be out here next weekend and trying to knock some of this stuff out. So, all right, I appreciate everyone taking the time to watch my videos. As always, feel free to leave any comments, questions, concerns, and I will answer them as they come along. And appreciate everyone taking their time on these, and hope you enjoy. And I will see you guys on the next one. So for now, this is Dino Don out.